In 2330, a space captain with space magic powers managed to get a job in middle management. I'm the Resolute Cartographer, and this is the story of the development of Stroud-Ecklund's Kepler Spacecraft. Though a new company when compared with other starship manufacturers, Stroud-Ecklund has established itself as one of the settled system's premier shipbuilders. At the head of the company, the husband and wife team of Walter Stroud and Isa Ecklund serve as co-CEOs, working together to steer the company in the right direction. Thanks to Walter Stroud's interest in and funding of the Exploration Society constellation, he found himself a member of the illustrious organization around the time of the discovery of the artifacts. In attempting to purchase one of these artifacts in Neon, the philanthropist found himself in a sticky situation. While that story deserves its own video, it's safe to say that the exploits of the captain of the Frontier in saving the day impressed Mr. Stroud. In recognition of their exploits in Neon, he asked the captain to assist him in a matter of importance at the company he owned with his wife. Though Stroud-Ecklund was producing high-quality, in-demand spacecraft, his research and development team at the Stroud-Ecklund Star Yard were paralyzed with indecision when it came to designing the company's next great model, the Kepler. As a favor to Walter Stroud in recognition of his support of Constellation, the captain set off for the Star Yard. When they arrived in the Narian system, the captain made their way to the company's orbital platform over Dalvik and went aboard. Upon entering the foyer, they were greeted by the recorded voice of Mr. Stroud on the PA system, welcoming them to Stroud-Ecklund. Avoiding the showroom for the moment, the captain headed for the conference room where they could faintly hear the R&D team arguing. Upon entering the room, they saw two men and two women sitting around a table while a third woman stood at its head, attempting to address the group. When the conversation reached a natural breaking point, the woman at the head of the table invited the captain to speak with her. Without introducing herself, the woman, whose name was Jules Degant, passive-aggressively danced around the fact that she was in no way happy with this interference with her team, especially from someone without experience in ship design. The captain ignored this slight as they understood her attitude. They would be upset with an inexperienced outsider coming in to fix a problem just as much as she was. The captain revealed that they indeed had experience with ship design, but that wasn't a necessary skill for this project as their problem wasn't having too few designers. Instead, the captain was here to take on the role of decision maker as the team was engaged in constant conversations on how to move forward with no forward momentum. Everyone on the team wanted to build something different, and there were few points of overlap in their designs. Despite this problem, Jules' goal was to merge the team's best ideas into a viable design. Regardless, no design choices could be made without first deciding on the size of the budget they would request to build their ship. The captain had to choose between one of two styles of budget: sensible or kitchen sink. Jules explained that while the sensible budget would be smaller and easier to get past the board for approval, the kitchen sink budget might be necessary for a multi-purpose vessel. It's at this point that parts of the story diverge into two possible paths, so I'll tell both versions were applicable. We'll call the kitchen sink budget version R and the sensible budget version S. The reason for those names will become more obvious with time. In version S, the sensible budget version, everyone would have to make some sacrifices. Specifically, lead designer Frank Yilmaz was going to have to lose some of his more opulent design choices. The captain used their skills of persuasion to bring Frank on board with a new plan. In version R, the kitchen sink budget version, the captain had to persuade Jules to accept the challenge of going for the larger budget. With this higher amount of cash, there was no need to really cut back on anything, and everyone could add their desired equipment to the finished ship. With the budget agreed to, they could move on to the next step. Though Jules encouraged the captain to speak with the team and review their proposals for the Kepler, what the team really needed was market research on multi-purpose ships. To this end, she asked the captain to use the local mission board to conduct two distinctive styles of jobs usually placed on those boards: an attack on a hostile ship and the transportation of travelers. The captain would of course carry out this market research, but first felt they needed to know what the team members were hoping to build. The captain spoke first with Ella Chaudhry, a senior technical designer. Ella, like Jules, was fairly upset that the captain had been granted the power that she personally wanted. That said, Ella enjoyed working for Stroud-Ecklund and her task of designing UX and UI solutions. As for her vision for the Kepler, Ella wanted the company to build an exploration ship. She wanted to open space exploration to the common man. Her Kepler would have the fuel and drive to go deep into space and come back again. Along with this, it would have excellent sensors and scientific equipment, but no weapons, as she felt it wouldn't need them. Having spent much of their time surveying star systems, the captain appreciated her concept for the ship, but felt that she might be underestimating how dangerous space could be without defenses. Next, the captain came to senior engineer Mike Ababio. Mike was one of the first engineers with the company, and though he was proud of his time there, he preferred to be called senior engineer rather than lead engineer. Along with this, he was happy to see the captain there, as it was plain to him that the project needed someone to facilitate progress. That said, his version of the Kepler was a cargo ship for the everyman. Mike wanted to build a ship with vast quantities of cargo space to allow the average consumer to get into the transportation business. Leaving Mr. Ababio behind, the captain next came to Nev Papadopoulos. One of the newer employees in the group, Nev was a member of the marketing department, having previously worked for the food processing and restaurant business Chunks. Her short tenure at the company and inexperience in design led her to shy away from vigorously pushing her own plans for the Kepler, the Space RV. As a child, Nev had enjoyed spending vacations with her family on distant worlds, living on their ship and exploring alien surroundings, but her family and those who took part in this pastime never felt that they had enough room on board. Nev wanted to build the Kepler to have room for one or more families on board, and powerful shields to keep them safe. Having heard Nev's proposal, the captain then spoke with Frank Ilmaz, the lead designer for the Kepler project. Frank was quick to point out that he had been designing ships for 10 years, and rushed to claim parity with the captain in the eyes of Walter Stroud. He wanted to build an ultra-luxury craft, the most luxurious on the market. His goal for the Kepler was to have celebrities prominently use the ship to increase its prestige. When the captain later searched Frank's desk, they found some specifics on luxury items he had in mind, including lots of gold trim, auto spas, walk-in closets and refrigerators, luxury sleep pods, aromatherapy units, and even a wine cellar. Though they had now heard from her team, the captain had yet to hear what project manager Jules de Gaunt had in mind. Jules had only recently graduated with a degree in engineering management, and the Kepler was the first project she managed for the company. For this project, she wanted to build a top-of-the-line starfighter. When questioned on whether there was a big civilian market for this product, she revealed that her real goal wasn't the civilian market, but to gain government contracts in the same vein as Deimos, which built most of its ships for the UC Navy. With the different opinions considered, the captain left the conference room to perform the market research as requested by Jules. At the local mission board, they picked up requests to fly to the Volii system to destroy a Crimson Fleet ship and drop passengers off at Neon. They returned to their ship and made the jump to the Volii system. Once there, the captain made quick work of the Crimson Fleet ship before bringing the passengers to their destination. With both missions accomplished, the captain returned to Narion and the Stroud-Ecklund Star Yard. Within the conference room, the captain found the team facing their final decision-making conundrum: what elements to include in the design and what to exclude. Facing the old impasse again, Jules claimed to have tried tackling this problem in the past with brainstorming sessions, individual designs, meetings on individual aspects of the ship, etc. She asked the captain what they should do. Here, the project could have potentially gone one of two ways. In one version, the captain suggested good old-fashioned team-building exercises with meditation and affirmations. This was successful, not directly, but in that it pushed team members like Frank to give up strongly held positions to avoid ever having to go through such an exercise ever again. In the other version, the captain suggested that each team member give up one element of their designs to push the project forward. Jules began this discussion by giving up some of her hardpoints at which to mount weapons. Ella gave up some of her extra sensors and data collection equipment. Mike gave up some of his cargo space. Nev gave up space for additional families. Lastly, Frank either gave up some of his luxury items or nothing, if he had already given it up before, had the captain gone with the sensible budget. With the team squared away, the captain set off to bring the good news to Walter Stroud. Returning to the lodge in New Atlantis, the captain found Stroud in the bar. They revealed that the Kepler was past R&D. The conversation went one of two ways. With version S, the sensible version, Stroud was pleased with the design. He said that though it might be playing it safe, it was an elegant evolution of the company's past work. Further, he was happy to make it his personal craft, and that the first of its kind off the assembly line was waiting for the captain at the Stroud-Ecklund yard in thanks for their hard work. When it comes to version R, the kitchen sink version, Stroud was clearly unhappy with the design. He said how amazed he was that the team managed to cram everything they could into a single craft, how it had never occurred to him to do something like that it's the most expensive ship they've ever made. Regardless of this, he remained unfailingly polite and claimed that he'd be happy to make it his new personal ship, and he offered up the first off the assembly line to the captain in thanks for their hard work. In both versions of the story, the captain returned to the Stroud-Ecklund Star Yard and found their new ship waiting for them. In the version S version of the story, the Kepler S was ready to go. With its Class B reactor and 400 units of fuel, the Kepler S was a mid-tier ship. Not as maneuverable as an A-class and not as powerful as a C-class. Though weaponless, the ship had plenty of hardpoints for weapon attachment and a reasonably strong shield. In terms of capacity, the Kepler S had generous storage at 3,520 units and room for 3 crew. In the version R version of the story, the Kepler R was ready to go. With a Class C reactor and 2,800 units of fuel, the Kepler R was more powerful with a significantly greater range than the Kepler S. Unlike the S, the Kepler R had both laser and ballistic weapons by default and a stronger shield than the S as well. In terms of capacity, the cargo hold of the Kepler R was only marginally more spacious than the S with 3,905 units, while the crew complement was double that of the S at 6. While all of these values are higher than those of the S, the Kepler R was nearly 80% more massive and therefore significantly less maneuverable. The interior layout of the Kepler R was also a bit odd, with the levels of the ship being only accessible via 2 different ladders. One of those ladders started in what I assume is the officer mess. Aesthetically speaking, while the Kepler S externally had an appearance like other Stroud-Ecklund ships, the R bore all the signs of being designed by committee. Either way, the captain helped the R&D team through a difficult decision-making process. That pretty much covers the narrative, but I have a few notes before closing things out. First, the market research section is kind of ridiculous. How would one destroy mission and one transport mission add up to market data on how to merge 5 ideas? There are 2 options to explain this. First, we have the possibility that Bethesda wanted to gamify market research, but wasn't quite sure how to do it in a short mission, or second, that this was simply a ploy for Jules to get us out of the office. Either seems reasonable. Second, while assisting Walter Stroud on Neon, it becomes apparent that he wanted to add a luxury model to the fleet. When in the R&D meeting room, it becomes clear that the company already has a luxury model, the Adonis yacht. That said, Frank Yilmaz's luxury model may have been well received by Stroud. Third, the design by committee aspect is plainly clear in the Kepler R. As it said, a camel is a horse designed by committee. The R is ugly and ungainly. I built my own everything ship with Stroud-Ecklund parts, and while I'm not particularly proud of it, I think it's significantly better looking than the R. Fourth, I completed this quest 3 times in the hope of testing how different the Kepler would be with different input given. I got R once and S twice. While I appreciate that Bethesda made 2 versions of the Kepler, it would have been better if they'd made 6 or more versions of the ship. Specifically, they could have produced the R, or design by committee version, and one for each of the team's ideas: exploration, cargo, recreational vehicle, luxury craft, and starfighter. Fifth, you can give the team feedback on their designs, both positive and negative, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on the ship's design. Along with this, you can call out Janet's passive-aggressive tone, which surprises Frank. Sixth, along with helping the R&D team, there's at least one additional job at the Stroud-Ecklund Star Yard: bringing resources for manufacturing. In my case, Mr. Havershaw was looking for chlorine. Fortuitously, Dalvik, the moon the station orbits, is a source of chlorine. After establishing a small chlorine production outpost on the moon, I delivered 500 chlorine to Havershaw for a total of 1,000 credits. While this wasn't worth the effort of collecting the rare resources required to organize the outpost, that 1,000 credits is still double the going market rate. Seventh, though Jules is quick to attack the captain's assignment to the project for taking away her ability to make decisions, the truth of the matter is that she wasn't using that authority. It was her first project for Stroud-Ecklund, and I think this is actually a fairly good representation of an inexperienced manager. She wasn't sure enough in herself to make the hard choices, instead relying upon the will of the group. With a group as small and opinionated as the R&D team, a consensus was unlikely to come together. Her annoyance with the captain coming in to push the team forward was likely just discomfort with the self-reflection that she wasn't keeping up with her responsibilities. We can hope that going forward, this experience will teach her to be more decisive in future projects. Lastly, Walter Stroud is an amazing man. When the game started, I assumed that, like so many other figures like him in video games and movies, he, as a corporate overlord, would in the end be the villain who was using Constellation for his own purposes. It's not that there aren't bad people running corporations, it's just that it's such an overly common story point that I was happily surprised not to see it here. While hopefully not spoiling too much here, he truly is in it for all the right reasons. He wants space explored for humanity, and is willing to shell out all the money it takes to make that happen. Even when you do something disappointing like deliver the Kepler R, he still treats you with respect. Alright, that should do it for this video. Follow me on X for lore video announcements at Gaming with Maps. My Discord is open to the public, there's a link in the channel's banner. I stream every Friday evening on YouTube, come by to check it out if you're interested. If you appreciate what I do here and you want to support the channel financially, you can become a member on YouTube or a patron with Patreon. I want to thank my channel members and patrons, Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, Dark Malcontent, Real76, Dr. Orion, Samsung Smart Fridge, Knight Spearhead, Ahotep, Prince Julius, and Chris G059 for their support. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.